They sent the ugly daughter as a prank. The mountain man chose her forever in a small town surrounded by tall, green mountains. There lived a family known for their love of jokes. The Millers were friendly, kind, and always ready to make people laugh, but sometimes their jokes went too far. They liked to play harmless pranks on neighbors, friends, and even each other, thinking laughter was the best medicine for life. Among them was Emma, their youngest daughter, who was soft-spoken and quiet. Emma had a gentle heart, always noticing small things others overlooked. She cared about animals, flowers, and the people around her, even when they didn't notice her. She loved reading stories and dreaming about adventures, though her shy nature often kept her in the background. Emma's family sometimes worried about her shyness. She wasn't like her older sister, who loved attention and could make everyone laugh easily. Emma preferred sitting in a corner with a book or walking along the small paths near their home, enjoying the quiet sounds of the mountains. She never tried to impress anyone, and that made her invisible to most of the town. People didn't notice her beauty because Emma's charm was subtle. She had a kind smile and gentle eyes, but she never demanded attention. The town had a tradition that sometimes felt old-fashioned, but it was still alive. Families would help their children meet potential partners through arranged introductions. This tradition was more of a fun community event than a strict rule. Families would introduce their children to someone, and if sparks flew, it could turn into something serious. The Millers, however, had always treated the tradition lightly. They liked the idea of helping their children meet good people, but they also saw it as an opportunity for mischief. This year, the Millers decided to play what they thought would be a harmless prank. They had heard about Jack, a mountain man who lived a few miles away in a cabin deep in the woods. Jack was well known in the town for his rugged appearance and simple life. He didn't care about fashion, makeup, or fancy dinners. People said he was honest, hardworking, and strong, but he was also a bit distant from town life. He spent most of his time hunting, fishing, and tending to his land. The Millers thought it would be funny to send Emma, their quiet and gentle daughter, to meet him, but to describe her to Jack in a joking way as the ugly option. Emma had no idea. She was excited and nervous about meeting someone new. She wanted to make a good impression. She dressed in her best clothes, simple but neat, and tried to hide her nervousness. Her family watched her prepare with mischievous smiles, hiding the fact that they had made a joke at her expense. Emma had always trusted her family, believing they wanted the best for her. She didn't suspect that this meeting was going to be more about laughter than love. The morning she was supposed to visit Jack, the town was quiet. The mountains were covered with soft mist and birds chirped in the distance. Emma walked along the narrow path leading to Jack's cabin, feeling both excitement and fear. She had never been deep into the woods alone before. The sun filtered through the trees, creating patterns of light on the ground. Emma felt small but determined, thinking that meeting someone new could be the beginning of a wonderful adventure. Jack's cabin appeared after a long walk. It was made of strong timber, with a small chimney puffing out smoke from a morning fire. It looked welcoming but simple. Emma took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Jack opened it almost immediately. He was tall and strong, with hands that had clearly worked hard over the years. His face was rugged, tanned from the sun, but his eyes held a calm, kind warmth. Emma's nerves grew, but she smiled politely and introduced herself. Jack welcomed her in without hesitation. He had met many people in the town, but few had come willingly into the forest to meet him. He didn't know what to expect, but he was always open to meeting someone genuine. Emma's gentle presence immediately made the cabin feel warmer. She looked around, noticing the simple furniture, the stack of firewood, and the smell of fresh bread and herbs. She felt nervous but also curious about his life. They sat together near the fireplace, and Emma spoke with quiet honesty. She told Jack about her love for nature, her favorite books, and small stories from her childhood. She laughed softly at her own awkward moments and admitted her shyness without shame. Jack listened carefully, noticing the sincerity in her words. He was used to people who pretended to be brave or confident, but Emma's honesty was refreshing. He realized that she was not trying to impress him or anyone else. She was simply being herself. Meanwhile, Emma's family watched from a distance, hidden behind some trees as part of their prank. They expected Jack to be confused or unimpressed by Emma. They whispered among themselves, anticipating that the joke would end with laughter at Emma's expense. But as the minutes passed, they noticed something unexpected. Jack was smiling genuinely, asking questions, and even laughing softly at her stories. He didn't care about her looks or her quietness. He was paying attention to her mind and her heart. Emma, too, began to feel a strange comfort. Jack's calm and attentive presence made her feel safe in a way she had never experienced before. She realized she could speak freely without fear of judgment. Her usual nervousness faded slowly as she shared more of her thoughts and dreams. They talked for hours about simple things: the mountains, the forest, animals, and the quiet joys of life. Emma discovered that Jack had a deep respect for nature and a thoughtful view of the world. She admired his independence and the way he cared for everything around him. By the time the sun began to set, Emma felt a connection she had never imagined. The prank that was meant to embarrass her was losing its power, replaced by something real. Jack's respect and kindness made her feel seen, not for her appearance, but for her true self. For the first time, Emma realized that meeting someone could be about understanding and friendship, not just appearances or social expectations. The Millers, hidden nearby, were confused. Their prank was supposed to be funny, but now they were witnessing genuine connection. Emma's nervous energy had transformed into quiet confidence, and Jack's interest was clearly sincere. They realized that the joke might have gone too far and that Emma could be experiencing something real, something they hadn't planned for. As night fell, Emma prepared to leave, feeling a mixture of happiness and hope. Jack walked her to the edge of the forest, thanking her for coming and expressing his wish to see her again. Emma smiled, feeling her heart lift with an unfamiliar warmth. She didn't yet know that this meeting would change her life, but she sensed that something special had begun. Back at home, the Millers sat silently, processing what they had witnessed. Their plan to embarrass Emma had backfired in the most unexpected way. Instead of humiliation, they saw genuine admiration and affection forming between Emma and Jack. The family realized that true connection wasn't about appearances or social jokes. It was about honesty, kindness, and the courage to be oneself. That night, Emma lay in bed thinking about the day's events. She couldn't stop smiling. The prank, unknown to her, had led to one of the most meaningful experiences of her life. She felt proud of herself for being brave enough to go into the mountains, for speaking her heart, and for meeting someone who truly valued her for who she was. She didn't yet know how her story would unfold, but she sensed that her life was about to change in ways she had never imagined. And so, what was meant to be a simple, silly joke became the beginning of something much greater. Emma, the quiet daughter who had always been overlooked, had unknowingly stepped into a story of love, trust, and unexpected connection. In the peaceful mountains, beneath the tall trees and the soft evening sky, her journey had begun, a journey that would test her courage, reveal her strength, and ultimately show the power of being true to oneself. After that first unexpected meeting, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Jack. The quiet strength he carried, the way he listened without judgment, and the gentle humor in his eyes stayed with her long after she had returned home. Every small detail of the cabin, the smell of the fire, the sound of the forest outside, replayed in her mind. She felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness, wondering if she would ever have the courage to go back and spend more time with him. Jack, too, found himself thinking about Emma. He had met many people in his life, but none had intrigued him like she did. There was something real in her, a simplicity that was not shallow, a gentleness that did not come from fear, and a quiet intelligence that shone through her words. He realized he wanted to know more about her, to share more of his life with her, and perhaps, in time, to let her see the world he had built in the mountains. A few days later, Emma found herself walking the familiar path to Jack's cabin again. This time, she wasn't nervous in the same way. She felt a quiet confidence, knowing that she had been accepted for who she truly was. The sun was rising behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Birds sang in the trees, and a soft breeze carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. As she walked, Emma imagined what her life might be like if she were to spend more time here, learning from Jack and sharing in the simplicity and beauty of the mountains. Jack was outside when she arrived, tending to a small garden he had planted near his cabin. He looked up, smiled warmly, and waved. "Emma," he said, his voice calm and welcoming, "I'm glad you came back." Emma smiled shyly and stepped closer. She noticed the care he put into the plants, how each flower and vegetable seemed to be growing stronger under his attention. It made her feel a sense of peace, knowing that he nurtured life so carefully. She felt inspired to help, and Jack invited her to join him. Together, they worked in the garden, planting seeds, watering young plants, and laughing at small mishaps, like when Emma accidentally dropped a watering can and soaked herself from head to toe. The hours passed quickly, and Emma felt more comfortable than she ever had with anyone. Jack shared stories about his childhood in the mountains, the challenges he had faced living alone, and the small joys he had discovered along the way. Emma listened intently, fascinated by his experiences. She realized that while the world outside the mountains might judge people by appearance or wealth, here, only character, effort, and honesty mattered. She admired the way Jack respected the earth, the animals, and the people he cared about, and she wanted to learn more from him. As the days turned into weeks, Emma visited Jack regularly. Sometimes she helped him with chores around the cabin, like stacking firewood, repairing fences, or cooking meals over the open fire. Other times, they simply sat together outside, watching the sun rise or set over the mountains, talking about their hopes, dreams, and fears. Emma discovered that Jack had a gentle sense of humor, a quiet wisdom, and an unwavering kindness that made her feel safe and understood. Jack, in turn, was surprised by Emma's resilience. Despite her shy nature, she had a courage that showed in the way she embraced new challenges, whether it was chopping wood, climbing steep trails, or learning how to cook over a fire. He admired her determination, her curiosity, and the way she treated everyone and everything around her with respect. With every visit, Jack felt a deeper connection forming, one that went beyond friendship or simple attraction. Emma also began to notice subtle changes in herself. She felt stronger, more confident, and more capable. The mountains and the work she shared with Jack taught her lessons she hadn't learned in town. She discovered that she could face difficulties without fear, that she could trust her instincts, and that she could form meaningful bonds built on honesty and kindness. She began to believe that perhaps she could have a life that was more than quiet observation, a life filled with purpose, connection, and love. One afternoon, as they sat near a small stream, Emma shared a story from her childhood. She spoke about her favorite book, the adventures she had dreamed of, and the small moments of joy she had found in everyday life. Jack listened carefully, nodding and smiling at the parts that touched him. "You have a way of seeing beauty in the smallest things," he said. "That is rare. Most people are too busy looking at what they want instead of noticing what is already around them." Emma felt a warmth in her chest. Jack's words made her feel seen, not for how she looked or what she could do for someone else, but for who she truly was. She realized that she could be herself with him, without fear of judgment or ridicule. That realization made her feel lighter, happier, and more open to the possibility of a deeper connection. Meanwhile, the Miller family had begun to notice a change in Emma as well. She seemed brighter, happier, and more confident than she had ever been. They had originally planned the prank as a joke, hoping for a laugh at her expense, but now they could see that something real and positive was happening. Emma was flourishing, learning new skills, and forming a bond with someone who respected her completely. The prank they had planned was slowly losing its meaning, replaced by the unexpected outcome of genuine friendship and growing affection. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Emma and Jack built a small fire outside the cabin. They sat close, sharing a simple meal of bread, cheese, and roasted vegetables. The firelight danced on their faces, highlighting the trust and comfort that had developed between them. They talked about the future, not in grand or frightening terms, but simply about the days to come and the experiences they hoped to share together. Emma realized that she was learning something more than survival skills or mountain knowledge. She was learning how to open her heart, trust another person, and appreciate the beauty in simplicity. Jack was teaching her, without words, that life could be full of meaning, love, and joy even without luxury or attention from others. Jack, in turn, felt that he had found someone who could understand him. Emma's quiet strength complemented his rugged independence. Her kindness softened his world, her honesty encouraged his own, and her presence made his days brighter. He began to hope that this connection, born from a simple meeting, could grow into something lasting and meaningful. The days continued like this, each one building on the last. Emma learned how to tend to animals, prepare meals, and navigate the forest trails with confidence. Jack taught her how to track animals, recognize edible plants, and appreciate the rhythm of mountain life. Together, they faced challenges, solved problems, and celebrated small victories. Every day, their bond grew stronger, built on respect, understanding, and shared experiences. Emma began to notice that Jack's friends and neighbors in the town spoke of him with respect. They admired his honesty, his work ethic, and his quiet generosity. Yet, despite their admiration, few people had ever truly connected with him in the way Emma did. She felt honored to be part of that small, private world, where trust and kindness mattered more than appearances or social status. As autumn arrived, the mountains changed colors, painting the world in shades of gold, orange, and red. Emma and Jack spent long afternoons walking through the forests, collecting firewood and enjoying the crisp, clean air. They laughed often, shared stories, and discovered new things about each other every day. Emma realized that she had found a place where she belonged, a place where her heart felt at home. Even though the original prank had set everything in motion, Emma had no idea how important this connection would become. She was grateful for the opportunity to learn, grow, and connect with someone who saw her for who she truly was. And Jack, though unaware of the joke at first, appreciated Emma's genuine spirit and the way she brightened his world simply by being herself. By the end of the season, their bond had become undeniable. They shared laughter, hard work, quiet moments, and heartfelt conversations. They had learned to depend on each other, support each other, and respect each other in ways that went far beyond friendship. Both Emma and Jack realized that something deep and lasting had begun to grow between them, a connection built on honesty, kindness, and the courage to be true to oneself. And so, in the quiet mountains, far from the expectations of town life, a story of trust, friendship, and growing affection had begun. Emma, once shy and overlooked, had found someone who appreciated her spirit. Jack, once solitary and distant, had found someone who could share his life with understanding and care. Together, they had discovered the first steps of a bond that promised to grow stronger with each passing day, built on the simple but powerful foundation of respect, honesty, and love. As the months passed, Emma and Jack's friendship grew stronger, transforming into something deeper, though neither of them had yet used words to define it. Their days were filled with simple routines, yet each moment held meaning. Emma learned to navigate the rugged terrain of the mountains, climbing steep paths and crossing small streams with care. Jack showed her how to identify different plants, how to track animals without disturbing them, and how to live in harmony with the forest around them. She found joy in these lessons, not just in learning the skills, but in sharing the experiences with someone who cared for her as an equal. Jack, on the other hand, found himself slowly opening up in ways he hadn't expected. Living alone for so long, he had grown used to silence and solitude. But Emma's presence brought warmth to the cabin, filling it with conversation, laughter, and even quiet moments that were comforting in their stillness. He found himself waiting for her visits, eager to hear her stories, see her smile, and simply enjoy the sound of her voice. In her, he recognized a rare kind of understanding and patience, someone who could see him for who he was without judgment and accept him completely. One crisp morning, Emma arrived at the cabin to find Jack working on repairing the roof. He had called her earlier, asking for help carrying some heavy beams. Though the task seemed daunting at first, Emma felt ready to face it. They worked side by side, laughing when they struggled to lift the timber, joking about their lack of strength compared to the stubborn roof. By the time the sun was high in the sky, the repairs were complete and they stood back to admire their work. "You're stronger than you think," Jack said, brushing the sweat from his brow. His voice was full of admiration, but Emma noticed a softness in his eyes that made her heart flutter. She smiled shyly, realizing that he had seen more in her than she had seen in herself. "And you're not as gruff as you seem," she teased lightly. Jack chuckled, a sound that was deep but full of warmth, and it made Emma laugh with ease. Days turned into weeks, and Emma began helping Jack with more than just chores. She learned how to cook over an open fire, how to care for the small vegetable garden, and even how to mend clothes when needed. Jack, in turn, showed her how to identify birds by their songs, how to find safe drinking water in the forest, and how to predict changes in the weather by observing clouds and winds. Emma loved these lessons, but even more, she loved the time she spent with Jack. Each lesson, each shared meal, each quiet moment became a thread weaving them closer together. One evening, after a long day of hiking and gathering firewood, they sat together near the cabin, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in deep shades of red, orange, and purple, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the tall trees surrounding them. Emma leaned back on a log, feeling the exhaustion of the day and the peace of the moment. She glanced at Jack, who was sitting quietly beside her, and noticed how the fading light highlighted the kindness in his face. "You've changed my world," Jack said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. Emma turned to look at him, surprised. "I never thought someone could make the mountains feel so alive," he continued. "You bring laughter, curiosity, and light. I don't even notice the loneliness anymore." Emma felt her heart swell at his words, realizing that she too felt the same way. His presence had transformed her life, making her feel confident, strong, and valued. Their bond grew not only through shared work but also through quiet understanding. Emma learned to read Jack's expressions, noticing when he was thoughtful, tired, or worried. Jack, in turn, became attuned to Emma's moods, sensing when she needed encouragement, a kind word, or simply a listening ear. They supported each other, celebrated small victories, and offered comfort during moments of doubt or fear. Emma realized that she had never known such deep trust with anyone before, and she cherished it with all her heart. One day, while walking along a narrow mountain trail, they encountered a small, injured fox. Emma immediately knelt down, examining the creature with care. Jack watched silently, impressed by her gentle touch and quick thinking. Together, they carried the fox back to the cabin, cleaned its wound, and bandaged it. Over the next few days, Emma tended to the fox, feeding it, keeping it warm and slowly earning its trust. Jack observed her patience and compassion, thinking how rare it was to find someone so kind and selfless. This experience further strengthened their bond, showing both of them that they could face challenges together and care for life around them. Emma's family, meanwhile, had begun to notice her transformation. They were surprised to see her confidence growing, her laughter more frequent, and her energy renewed. The prank they had planned seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a genuine glow of happiness in their daughter. They had never expected her time in the mountains to change her so profoundly, and while they were curious about Jack, they could not deny the positive effect he had on Emma's life. The changing seasons brought new experiences for Emma and Jack. In the winter, they worked together to gather firewood, keep the cabin warm, and care for the animals that stayed nearby. Snow covered the mountains in a sparkling white blanket, and Emma learned to navigate the cold, discovering the joy of simple things like making tracks in fresh snow or watching the way sunlight glinted off ice crystals. Jack enjoyed teaching her how to move carefully across frozen streams and how to build small shelters for animals during harsh weather. They laughed together when Emma slipped on ice or struggled to lift heavy logs, making memories that would last a lifetime. As the bond between them grew, they also shared their fears and insecurities. Emma admitted her worries about being shy, overlooked, and misunderstood by the world outside the mountains. Jack revealed his own doubts about trusting others, opening up about his years of solitude and the difficulties of living apart from the community. Sharing these vulnerabilities brought them closer, deepening their trust and understanding. They realized that love and friendship were not just about joy, but also about supporting each other through fears and challenges. One afternoon, Emma and Jack sat near a cliff overlooking the valley below. The view was breathtaking, the mountains stretching endlessly into the horizon, bathed in golden sunlight. They spoke quietly about their dreams. Emma's dreams of learning new skills, exploring the world and living a life filled with purpose. Jack's dreams of keeping the mountains thriving, protecting nature, and sharing his world with someone who truly cared. They discovered that their dreams aligned in ways they hadn't expected. They both wanted a life built on respect, honesty, and simplicity, where love and companionship mattered more than appearances or wealth. Emma began to notice small moments that made her heart flutter. The way Jack would pause to notice a bird in flight, the way he would hand her a warm drink after a long day, or the way he would simply smile when she said something thoughtful. Jack, too, noticed Emma's charm, intelligence, and resilience. He realized that she was someone rare, someone whose inner beauty shone brighter than any outward appearance could. Their connection soon began to draw the attention of the small town, though Emma and Jack remained largely unaware. Some neighbors whispered about the quiet girl who spent so much time with the rugged mountain man. Rumors circulated, but neither Emma nor Jack let it affect their bond. They were focused on their shared experiences, the lessons learned in the mountains, and the growing affection that was quietly blossoming between them. One evening, after a long day of work in the fields, Jack invited Emma to sit with him by the fireplace. The cabin was warm, the fire crackling softly, and the wind howled outside. They shared a simple meal and then sat in silence for a while, feeling the comfort of being together without the need for words. Finally, Jack spoke. "I think I've never felt this way before," he admitted, his voice low and steady. "You've changed my life, Emma, not just with what you do, but with who you are." Emma felt a warmth in her chest that she had never known. She realized that she, too, had grown to care deeply for him, more than she could have imagined when she first arrived in the mountains. As the winter nights grew longer, they continued to spend their days learning, laughing, and supporting each other. Each small victory, fixing a fence, tending the garden, or helping an animal became a shared achievement, a bond strengthened by teamwork and mutual respect. They discovered that love could be quiet, gentle, and steadfast, growing naturally from trust, understanding, and the joy of simply being together. By the end of this period, Emma and Jack had formed a connection that was unshakable. They shared their lives fully, faced challenges together, and discovered the depth of understanding and affection that comes from true companionship. Their bond, formed in the quiet beauty of the mountains, was no longer just friendship. It was the foundation of a love built on respect, honesty, and shared life experiences. And so, Emma and Jack continued their journey, side by side, learning from the mountains from each other, and from the quiet, steady rhythm of life that the wilderness had to offer. Their story, once begun as a simple encounter, had blossomed into something profound, a connection that neither of them could ignore, a bond that promised to carry them through every season yet to come. As winter gave way to spring, the mountains began to glow with life once more. The snow melted into sparkling streams, wildflowers appeared along the trails, and the air was filled with the scent of fresh grass and blossoms. For Emma and Jack, these changes mirrored the growth of their relationship. Each day brought new experiences, shared tasks, and quiet moments that deepened their bond. They had grown so close that even a single glance could convey understanding, and every conversation strengthened the trust and affection between them. One sunny afternoon, Emma arrived at Jack's cabin with a basket full of fresh bread and eggs. She had learned to bake in the cabin's small kitchen, experimenting with simple recipes and delighting in the results. Jack greeted her with his usual warm smile, and together they unpacked the basket and began preparing a meal over the fire. As they worked, Emma told Jack stories of her family and the small pranks they had played in the past. She laughed at the memories, unaware that she was about to become the center of a much bigger story herself. That evening, some neighbors from the town visited Jack's cabin unexpectedly. They had come to deliver supplies and check on him after the harsh winter months. Among them were a few members of Emma's family. The Millers had grown curious about the bond between Emma and Jack, and though they hadn't intended to interfere, they had decided to see for themselves how their daughter was spending her time. Emma greeted them politely, explaining that she had been learning about mountain life and helping Jack with various tasks. The family was impressed by how confident and capable she had become, though they were still unaware that their original prank, sending her to Jack as a joke, was about to be revealed. As the evening wore on, someone mentioned the story of how Emma had first met Jack. The Millers laughed awkwardly, expecting to see Emma blush or feel embarrassed. It was time to reveal the prank. "Do you remember," one of them said with a mischievous smile, "how we described you as the ugly daughter just to see what Jack would do?" Emma's eyes widened. She felt a surge of embarrassment and confusion, unsure how to react. She looked at Jack, who had been quiet until now. The cabin seemed to hold its breath as the revelation settled into the room. Emma felt her face grow warm and feared that everything she had built with Jack would be overshadowed by this cruel joke. But Jack's reaction was not what anyone expected. Instead of laughing or expressing disappointment, he turned to Emma with a calm, steady gaze. "Emma," he said softly, "I never cared about what anyone said about appearances. I never judged you by what your family told me. I've known you for who you truly are, your kindness, your courage, your honesty, and your heart. That's what matters to me." Emma blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. Her heart swelled with relief, warmth, and a happiness she hadn't thought possible. Jack continued, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You've been a friend, a partner in life, and someone I respect more than anyone I've ever met. The joke your family played doesn't change what I feel for you. It only shows that even when people make mistakes, truth and character shine through." Emma's family, stunned by Jack's words, could only watch. The prank that had been intended for laughter and embarrassment had completely backfired. Instead of humiliation, it had revealed something far more powerful, a bond built on trust, respect, and genuine affection. Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but they were tears of joy, not shame. She realized that Jack had seen her for who she truly was, and that no words, rumors, or jokes could change that. The tension in the cabin slowly melted. Emma's family began to understand that their plan had unintended consequences, and those consequences were beautiful. They saw how Jack valued Emma not for her looks or for a family joke, but for her spirit, her intelligence, and the love she brought into his life. Slowly, they began to smile, and one by one, they offered apologies, not for revealing the prank, but for ever doubting that Emma's worth was more than superficial. After the initial surprise passed, the evening transformed into one of celebration and reflection. Jack invited everyone to sit by the fire, sharing stories of the mountains, the work he had done, and the life he had built in the wilderness. Emma's family listened, realizing that this life, though different from their own, was rich with meaning, love, and fulfillment. They saw how Emma had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident, and understood that their prank had inadvertently set her on a path to discovering her own resilience and worth. Emma and Jack shared quiet moments throughout the evening, smiling at each other with a sense of shared understanding. They had faced the revelation of the prank together, and it had only strengthened their connection. Emma felt a deep gratitude for Jack's patience, kindness, and unwavering respect. She realized that true love and trust could withstand not only challenges, but also misunderstandings and jokes meant in jest. In the days that followed, Emma and Jack continued their routines, their bond stronger than ever. The prank was now a story they would laugh about together, a reminder of how love and character matter more than appearances or first impressions. Emma's family, too, had learned a valuable lesson about humility, understanding, and the power of seeing beyond surface-level judgments. One afternoon, as Emma and Jack walked along a sunlit trail, Jack spoke quietly, taking her hand in his. "Emma," he said softly, "you've shown me what it means to truly care for someone. You've taught me patience, kindness, and the joy of being with someone who sees me as I am. I can't imagine my life without you now." Emma's heart soared. She felt the depth of his words, the sincerity in his eyes, and the promise of a future built on trust, respect, and love. She realized that their connection was no longer just friendship. It had grown into something enduring and unbreakable. She squeezed his hand, knowing that she, too, wanted to be part of this life, sharing every challenge, every joy, and every quiet moment. The mountains around them seemed to reflect their emotions. The gentle rustling of leaves, the birds singing in the trees, and the soft sunlight filtering through the branches created a perfect backdrop for the beginning of a new chapter. Emma felt at peace, knowing that despite the prank, despite any doubts or fears, she had found someone who valued her completely. Jack and Emma continued to face small challenges together, harsh weather, difficult tasks, and moments of uncertainty. But each obstacle only strengthened their bond. They learned to rely on each other, to communicate openly, and to support each other without hesitation. Their love was quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in the respect and understanding they had nurtured over months of shared experiences. Emma's family gradually became part of this journey as well. They visited the cabin more often, bringing supplies, sharing meals, and witnessing firsthand the life Emma and Jack had built together. They saw how Emma had grown into a confident, capable, and joyful young woman, and how Jack's patience and kindness had helped her flourish. The prank that had begun as a joke had transformed into a story of growth, trust, and genuine love, a lesson that would stay with the family forever. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the mountains, Emma and Jack sat side by side, holding hands and reflecting on everything that had happened. "I never imagined a joke could lead to this," Emma said softly, smiling. "I'm grateful it did, though, because I found you." Jack nodded, his eyes reflecting the fading light. It may have started as a joke, but it became something real, something lasting. I've come to care for you in ways I never thought possible. You've changed my life, Emma. As the sky darkened and stars began to appear, Emma realized that she had found not just love, but a partnership built on honesty, respect, and unwavering support. She had faced embarrassment, uncertainty, and doubt, but through it all, she had remained true to herself. And in Jack, she had found someone who saw her value, who celebrated her heart, and who chose her not because of appearances, but because of the person she truly was. The prank was no longer a source of humiliation or shame. It had become a turning point, a moment that revealed the depth of character, the strength of love, and the power of seeing beyond the surface. Emma and Jack's connection had been tested, and it had emerged stronger than ever, ready to face the future together. And so, in the mountains where snow had melted into streams and wildflowers painted the slopes, Emma and Jack's story reached a new chapter. They had faced the revelation of the prank, confronted emotions, and emerged with a bond deeper than either had expected. The trust, respect, and love they shared promised to guide them through every season yet to come, proving that true connection is built not on appearances or jokes, but on the heart, the soul, and the courage to be genuine. Spring had fully returned to the mountains, bringing with it a sense of renewal, warmth, and hope. The snow had melted completely, the streams gurgled with clear water, and wildflowers carpeted the valleys in colors of pink, yellow, and white. For Emma and Jack, the mountains had become more than just a home. They were the backdrop of a story that had grown stronger with every season. Their bond, once tentative and uncertain, had blossomed into a deep, abiding love that both of them cherished. The revelation of the prank had brought them closer, teaching Emma and Jack that honesty and character mattered far more than appearances. They had faced the moment together, and it had strengthened their trust in each other. Now, months later, the pair had become inseparable. They spent their days tending to the cabin, caring for animals, working in the garden, and exploring the trails that wound through the mountains. Every activity, no matter how simple, had become a shared adventure, a memory, and a reminder of how far they had come. Emma had grown more confident than she had ever imagined. She moved through the mountains with grace and strength, learned to live in harmony with the wilderness, and became a true partner in Jack's life. She no longer doubted herself or her worth. Jack's quiet encouragement, respect, and admiration had helped her see her own value, and she carried that confidence not only in the mountains but into the wider world as well. Jack, too, had changed. Emma's presence had brought warmth, laughter, and companionship into his once solitary life. He had always been independent, capable, and strong, but Emma had shown him that life was richer when shared with someone who truly understood and cared. He cherished her kindness, her intelligence, and the gentle strength that had grown within her over the months. Together, they were more than two people living in the mountains. They were a team, a family, and partners in every sense of the word. One bright morning, Jack decided it was time to take the next step in their journey. He had thought long and hard about it, wanting everything to be perfect. He wanted Emma to know just how deeply he cared, and he wanted to ask her to share her life with him forever. He planned a small surprise, choosing a quiet spot on a ridge that overlooked the valley below. From there, the mountains stretched endlessly, bathed in golden sunlight, and the sky above was clear and vast. It was a place that held the beauty, peace, and freedom they both loved. When Emma arrived at the cabin, she noticed Jack had a small pack with him. Curiosity sparkled in her eyes as she followed him along a familiar trail, winding through forests of pine and maple. Birds sang overhead and the air smelled sweet with the scent of fresh flowers and earth. As they reached the ridge, Jack stopped and turned to her, smiling nervously but warmly. "Emma," he began, "there's something I've been meaning to ask you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She sensed the seriousness in his tone and the quiet excitement in his eyes. Jack took a deep breath and continued. When we first met, it was unexpected. A prank, actually, that I later learned about. But that meeting and everything that followed changed my life. You've shown me kindness, patience, and love in ways I never thought possible. You've become my partner, my friend, my heart. I want us to continue this journey together forever. Jack reached into his pocket and held out a simple, beautiful ring. Emma gasped, tears welling in her eyes. "Will you marry me, Emma? Will you be my wife and share this life with me?" Emma, overwhelmed with emotion, threw her arms around him. She could barely speak through her tears of joy. "Yes, Jack," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Their embrace seemed to hold the mountains themselves, the wind carrying their laughter and joy across the valley. When they returned to the cabin, Emma's family and some of Jack's friends from the town had gathered. They had been invited to celebrate, though none knew exactly what to expect. The Millers, who had once tried to prank Emma, now watched with pride and happiness as their daughter's life took a turn toward something truly beautiful. Jack and Emma exchanged rings in a simple ceremony, surrounded by the mountains, the forest, and people who cared for them both. There was no need for grandeur, for the love and sincerity of the moment were enough. After the ceremony, everyone joined together for a celebration. Meals were shared over the open fire, stories were told, and laughter echoed through the cabin and the surrounding forest. Emma's family, once worried about the prank, now realized that the joke had unintentionally led to a life-changing connection. Jack and Emma's love story had become an inspiration, a reminder that true beauty lies in character, kindness, and the courage to be oneself. As the days turned into weeks, Emma and Jack settled into their new life as a married couple. They continued their routines in the mountains, but now with the added joy of sharing a lifelong commitment. They tended to their animals, cared for the land, and explored new parts of the forest together. Each day brought new discoveries, laughter, and moments of quiet reflection. Emma's gentle spirit and Jack's strength complemented each other perfectly, creating a partnership that thrived on mutual respect and love. The couple also became a source of inspiration for others in the town. Neighbors who had once judged Jack for his solitary life now admired the harmony he shared with Emma. Families who had laughed at the idea of a mountain man marrying a quiet, shy girl began to understand the power of love built on trust, understanding, and patience. Emma and Jack showed that life could be rich and fulfilling without wealth, appearances, or social expectations. All that truly mattered was heart, honesty, and commitment. As the seasons changed once more, the mountains became a living testament to Emma and Jack's journey. Spring brought blooming flowers, summer brought long, sunny days perfect for exploration, autumn painted the hills in warm colors, and winter covered everything in a peaceful blanket of snow. Throughout it all, they faced challenges together, storms, difficult tasks, and the occasional illness or accident, but each obstacle only strengthened their bond. They learned to rely on each other completely, trusting not only in their love but in their shared resilience and wisdom. Emma also discovered new strengths within herself. She became a skilled gardener, a careful caretaker of animals, and an expert in mountain survival skills. She taught Jack small things too, like reading books together, observing nature more closely, and finding joy in quiet, reflective moments. Jack learned from her patience, empathy, and ability to notice the beauty in small details. Together, they grew as individuals and as a team, their love nurturing both their hearts and their minds. Over time, the couple began to dream about the future. They talked about expanding their small cabin, planting more gardens, and even raising a family amidst the mountains. They discussed the life they wanted to build, filled with laughter, love, learning, and shared experiences. Every plan, every dream was rooted in the trust and understanding they had cultivated over months of shared life. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Emma reflected on how far they had come. She remembered the day she had first met Jack, unaware of her family's prank, nervous but hopeful. She remembered the slow unfolding of their friendship, the shared work, the quiet conversations, and the small moments that had built a strong connection. And now, as she looked at Jack, she realized that every moment, even those that had begun with uncertainty or fear, had led to a life richer than she could have imagined. Jack, too, reflected on their journey. He thought about the first time he had seen Emma, how her sincerity and gentle nature had drawn him in. He remembered the lessons they had learned together, the trust they had built, and the love that had grown quietly but steadily between them. He realized that their story, though it had begun in a strange and unexpected way, had become something extraordinary, a partnership, a love, and a life built on honesty, respect, and shared dreams. Their story continued in the mountains, filled with laughter, love, and purpose. Emma and Jack's life was simple but full, guided by mutual respect, shared goals, and a deep understanding of each other's hearts. They faced the world together, supporting each other through challenges, celebrating victories, and finding joy in the small, everyday moments that made life meaningful. The mountains themselves seemed to embrace their story. Every trail, stream, and ridge became a part of their shared history, a witness to their love, resilience, and commitment. They walked together through all the seasons, each step strengthening the bond that had begun with a chance meeting and had grown through months of trust, patience, and understanding. Emma and Jack's love story became a quiet legend in the town. People often spoke of the quiet girl who had been sent as a joke, and the mountain man who had chosen her not for appearances, but for the depth of her heart. Their story reminded everyone that true love is not about beauty, wealth, or status. It is about honesty, kindness, patience, and the courage to see and cherish someone for who they truly are. And so, Emma and Jack continued their journey, hand in hand, hearts intertwined, living a life full of love, purpose, and meaning. The prank that had begun as a joke had led to a lifelong partnership, a home filled with laughter and trust, and a love that would endure through every season, challenge, and joy that life had to offer. Together, they had discovered the true power of love, and the mountain stood witness to a story that was both ordinary and extraordinary, a story of hearts chosen not for appearances, but for the beauty of the soul.